Welcome to 701 Civics, the show that seeks to provide listeners with a greater understanding of state and local government in North Dakota. I'm your host, former social studies teacher Brian Pechtel, and I hope you'll join me as we learn together by visiting with a variety of elected officials and leaders throughout the state about the role of state and local government in the everyday lives of North Dakotans. And welcome to 701 Civics. I'm your host, Brian Pechtel, and today my co-host is Samantha Pechtel, my wife, sitting in to quiz me on our topic today. Samantha, feel free to say hi.
Hi, and I don't know if quizzing you is the best phrase there.
Well, go ahead. I mean, you can try it. I might get it totally wrong, but asking questions about the process, because today is a follow-up to our first session of how a bill is made in the North Dakota Legislature.
So if you missed the first episode, go back and listen to that one, because you'll be maybe a little more confused.
More confused or less?
Well, I'm not saying that this process is completely clear to the regular person. So
absolutely right. And there's over 1,000 bills in this particular legislative session, the 2025 session. So if you are trying to find a particular bill, you kind of have to know what you're doing to locate that thing on the website. The North Dakota Legislature does a good job overall of getting all those bills out there and so forth, but you've got to make sure you've got some keywords if you're going to search it if you don't know the bill number. And ironically, last time we didn't know a bill number because we didn't have one. And so...
But now we do.
Yeah, it happened probably about a day or two after, I think it was, we recorded the prior podcast listening episode. And so now we have an actual designation. It is House Bill number 1479. So,
yay.
Yeah, very, very excited. I think I had said in the last episode that I was from District 35. If I didn't, that's where I'm from. And I had reached out to my representative, Karen Carls, about developing the bill that designates October 1st as North Dakota Constitution Day. Easy for me to spit out.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to read the wording here. Last time, again, I had to go back and forth a little bit with Karen, Representative Carls, as far as what that wording was to make it less confusing. So here's the actual language from the bill, and I'll go from line 6. It says, North Dakota Constitution Day. To commemorate the adoption of the Constitution of North Dakota on August 17, 1889, by Constitutional Convention, and the ratification by vote on October 1, 1889, by the people of the territory that would become North Dakota, and to encourage state citizens to seek greater knowledge and understanding of the Constitution of North Dakota. The 1st of October of each year is designated and established as North Dakota Constitution Day. So it is one run-on sentence, a lot of commas. The North Dakota Legislative Council is the one who writes the bills, the drafts, if you will, and it is primarily lawyers, and so they use a lot of punctuation marks, and the sentences can be a little bit confusing sometimes. But this one's short, so I think it's relatively easy to understand. Samantha, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, once you really just understand that it's just designating October 1st as North Dakota Constitution Day, like the lead up is kind of why, why it's that day. So yeah, it's pretty easy.
Yeah. So once the wording was revised, Representative Carls let me know that the bill was going to be formally introduced, and that was done on January 20th, 2025. So the bill gets introduced. It has its first reading, which is required in the House.
Are you saying that it's like someone got to the front of all of the members of the House and read the bill?
All the bills aren't read complete totality because some of the bills are many, many pages long.
Sure.
So, and I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't get to tune in to see it get introduced.
Okay.
So that first reading, maybe I'm going to have to bring one. Maybe I'll bring Representative Carls or someone back on, and we can talk about that process just a little bit, what that really looks like. Because there's that first reading, and then it's automatically or in order, it gets referred to a committee to hear about the bill. And this one I thought was kind of interesting because they referred it to the Ag Committee.
So why did it get referred to the Ag Committee? As far as I'm aware, this bill has nothing to do with agriculture.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. When I did ask another representative, she had told me, she said that some of the committees are extremely busy with some of the bills that they've got, and some of them are a little less busy. And so what the House has been doing is divvying up some of the bills to committees that are less busy and not bored, but just don't have as many bills introduced as others. So they've got a little bit more time where they can examine the bill, listen to any testimony, and then decide whether or not to give it a do pass or do not pass recommendation.
And I just want to clarify, the committee is a makeup of representatives.
Correct. There's a number of representatives. The committees are picked out far earlier. There's an organizational session, again, that takes place in December. Those chairmanships or chairs picked out, members of the committees and so forth. All that kind of takes place in December. And I think it's settled in early January. I could be incorrect, but I don't believe that I am.
Okay.
So that's January 20th. So it's introduced, and just giving you a little bit of a timeline here. On January 28th, Representative Carls emailed me and said that she's going to be getting testimony prepared herself, and she invited me to get testimony if there was anybody else that I thought would be worthwhile, or who would speak in favor or testify in favor, to also reach out to any of those individuals. And so that's what I did, and we were communicating back and forth a good number of times on the 20th and the 28th. And I believe I said last time, Representative Carls works late into the evening hours. I was getting some of these messages back and forth well after 9 o'clock, closer to 10 p.m. So it gives a little bit of an idea how long the legislators are working. They're there, many of them by 8 o'clock in the morning, and putting in quite long days, particularly because of probably the number of the bills that are being heard. So I know the representatives and senators do like to read as much of those things as they can, even though some of them might be 20 pages or more. So
Jeez, that's just a long bill.
yeah, I had looked at, and I can't remember which one it was today. Something was about 24 to 29 pages, and most of it was brand new. So go through line by line, and again, to understand some of it when it is written in what I would consider legalese, can be a little bit of a challenge. So on the 28th, I had again emailed back, said that I had started with the testimony, but I hadn't quite finished it. And so I had 2 more days because the committee hearing was happening on January 30th. So from introduction to a hearing, in this case, was 10 days. And so 8 a.m. On that date, I made sure, actually 7:45, I made sure I was in the room. Representative Carls was there, and there was another gentleman testifying in support in person. And in addition to that, there was also 2 more individuals who had submitted written testimony. And
so I just have to, say that we were actually able to watch this online, the hearing, which was really cool. And I used it as a teaching moment for our kids, because, hey, look, there's Daddy putting on testimony for his bill. So it was cool.
Yeah, it is great. And I might have mentioned that last time. I said, that the one really good thing that COVID did was it opened up the legislative process for citizens. You can watch it. You can get that testimony submitted online. You don't have to be there. I watched another little bit of a hearing previously about 1 or 2 days ago, and someone was submitting testimony, and he was actually coming in via video. He wasn't even in person. And so
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because Bismarck, I've said before, we're a long ways from some of those eastern parts of North Dakota, especially in the wintertime with the weather that we have. So the ability to do that is really nice. That isn't done nearly as much. Obviously, the further we get away from COVID, the ability to video that testimony in live, but still the ability to watch it anywhere in North Dakota, live as it's happening, hearing what your representatives might be saying, or just hearing a bill that you're very interested in, how that's proceeding. I think that's a really great thing that happened.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So testimony started. Representative Carls introduced the bill because it was hers. And so she told just a little bit about it, gave a little background about the person who, had asked her to do that, which was me. And then she turned the floor over to me. And so I got up, gave some testimony there, and was able to field several questions from the lawmakers, which, is very interesting because if you do go up there, you do need to know your stuff, and you try not to be caught off guard. Now, the nice thing is this bill is not really controversial.
Right.
Again, the idea is to encourage people, encourage schools, adults, everyone of us to take a look at the North Dakota Constitution and understand that document better, what it was, how it's changed through the years. So the reason I kind of selected that topic, A, it's important. B, I didn't think anybody would really vote against it. And I was kind of surprised we didn't have such a designation. So the questions that I received, some people were a little surprised. They said, I had told them the North Dakota Constitution is over 17,000 words. The U.S. Constitution is just a little bit over 4,500 words. So ours is a little bit more verbose, a lot more words to it than the U.S. Constitution. I encourage people to read it because you'll find out a lot of the items in the Bill of Rights are included in our North Dakota Constitution as well, which is important for all kinds of reasons for a different podcast, radio episode. But for the number of questions had, good positive inquiry, there was a lot of interest as to how often the document has been amended. And from my research, shows about 167 times. The United States Constitution has been amended 27 times. So that was a surprise.
That was one of your questions, right? Or that you fielded was something about like why, or, is it easier to amend the North Dakota Constitution?
Yeah. Yeah. And trying to think what I had replied on the spot. I guess I can go watch the video because it is recorded online and available for viewing any time. It is far easier to amend the North Dakota Constitution than the U.S. It's not completely easy, but it is easier. And many people will make the argument that the founders or the writers at the North Dakota Constitutional Convention did that on purpose. They wanted the government to be accountable to the people, and accountable in a way that means that the people can create some laws. And we have certainly taken advantage of that throughout our state's history. So, I appreciated the questions. It was kind of fun. So once the testimony was done, and this was less than 15 minutes, the committee then went around and took a vote on, are they going to give it a due pass or not? And so the motion was made, seconded, they all voted, and the committee voted 12-0 to give it a do pass recommendation. And
Yay!
yeah, I was very, very excited by that. Many of the bills in the legislature do get unanimous support, but there's a pretty large chunk that does not. It can be pretty close. And obviously bills that are a little bit more controversial or even just technical bills, might get the do not pass.
Right.
One thing is for sure, the legislative body does take that fairly seriously, because the committees are kind of the ones who've taken the testimony, read it over. The rest of the chamber realizes that they may not have seen all the testimony, may not have read it, may not have read the entire bill. So they're relying on the expertise of their fellow legislators to give them their wisdom. Do they think it's a good bill? Is it beneficial for the state? So again, 12-0 they did. So that made me quite thrilled. At that point, they had to decide now who gets to take the bill and introduce it really to the rest of the House to take the big vote from the entire chamber. Ultimately, they did decide on Representative Rios to do that, and he did present that bill. We weren't sure just exactly how fast it was going to come up. It was the next afternoon.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it again, from being suggested on the 29th of December to passage in a chamber on the 31st. I guess I'm a little bit ahead of myself, but ultimately it's 1 month, and that speaks volumes really to how fast our system is able to work. So Karen, Representative Carls, emailed me, said, "Yep, it's coming up for a vote." And I didn't get that until afterwards, unfortunately, about 15, 20 minutes later. So I tuned in, and the bill was introduced, and it passed 88-0.
So you got another unanimous vote.
We did. We did get another unanimous vote. Positive words were said about it by Representative Rios, so that was great to hear. And so the next step, because it is now done in the House of Representatives, the next place it goes is to the North Dakota Senate. And
that's exciting.
Yeah, I stopped and I took a look on the website to kind of track the progress or the status of that bill. And on February 3rd, 2025, the bill was received into the North Dakota Senate from the House. Now, no action is going to be taken on this bill, from my understanding, for quite a while. Bill crossover date, when all of the bills have to be exchanged between the House and the Senate, that is going to be at the end of the month, February 28th. Excuse me, February 28th is the crossover date for bills. And
so we probably won't hear anything else about this bill until after the 28th.
Yeah, probably not. I will be reaching out, however, to my District 35 senator just to make sure that he does have word that it's passed, to put out a good word for it over there, and to start that process of supporting that bill. I'll probably also try to reach out to maybe one or two other senators. To me, it's important to reach out to as many as possible and to email them and say, hey, please do support this bill. And if any listener does that, that would be greatly appreciated. You can just, again, write your legislator directly. When we find out when the bill will get testimony, when it will get a committee hearing, testimony can be submitted online, and we would love to see lots of people.
I'm sure you will include the link in the show notes, right?
Yeah, for a podcast, they'll definitely be in show notes for sure for that. So as far as what the whole process has taught me thus far, our North Dakota legislators are very accessible. They're willing to listen. And again, I'm not having a controversial topic here. So that's relatively easy, relatively simple. But they do listen to their constituents. They reach out, visit with them, And, the flip side of that is, as constituents, we need to make sure that we contact our legislators, let them know how we feel, and not just during the session. I think in our previous episode, we had discussed that we know our legislators outside of the legislative season. We've seen them in multiple places, introduced ourselves, and we're just about on first name basis. And I think that's really important. And North Dakota is a nice small state. We have the luxury of doing that. And we also have the luxury of going into the Capitol. We can visit with our legislators there. There's a lot of state capitals where it's a lot harder to gain access as a citizen and get in touch with your senator or representative. And so I guess, yeah, that's it. That's step one. Then we're going to go to step two, get to the Senate. And if that happens to pass, then it goes on to, again, the governor and the secretary of state to sign that into law, ultimately. The governor signs it. Secretary of state, of course, is there, kind of witness it, if you will. So if that happens, we are going to do everything in my powers to try to get a picture of that when it does happen.
That would be cool.
I think that's kind of important to see that whole process through completion.
Well, sounds like you've, got those steps down.
Yeah. Again, this was an easy bill to follow. I do encourage people, find bills that interest you. Just going to take a look right here on the old iPad, and it says, if I can get all the way to the top as I scroll through countless bills, there are 1,071 bills in the legislature session.
That's so many.
It really is. That you're not wrong. The nice thing is, on the legislative site, you can create an account, and you can, if you want to track certain bills, you can select those and go back and forth and find out the information on those. There are bills already that have, again, passed or failed. They are noted on the site. They'll have a little red X for those that have failed. And so it's pretty interesting. But yeah, you've really got to commit some time to it, which is one of the complaints people have, is that there are too many bills right now in our legislative session. Hopefully I'm not guilty of, a wasteful bill. I don't think it is. But there are a lot of bills. And a number of those, again, are introduced by agencies. That can be, any of the state agencies have to submit their budgets and whatnot. So those are a couple hundred bills. And beyond that, it's the legislators who submit those. And in some cases, there are, some legislators have many, many bills that they've sponsored and co-sponsored. It's part of the process, for better or worse. Most of the legislators seem to agree that there are too many bills, but nobody seems to have pulled back yet.
Someone could make a bill to limit the number of bills.
And they wouldn't even need to make a bill.
Okay.
They could simply make a rule. That was a discussion.
Know what a rule is.
Yeah, that was a discussion previously on another bill inside the chamber, and I do not recall exactly which one it was, but one of the veteran legislators got up and said, we really don't need this to be a bill. We can just make it a rule not to do, again, whatever it was. And there is a lot of truth to that. There's probably a number of bills that may not need to be there if they would just change some of the rules. So that would be a possibility. If someone wants to talk to their legislature, it is too late to introduce new bills at this point, basically. One really has to plan out, if there is something that you really believe in, you've got to be well prepared before the session ever begins. And so you have to know your topic. You'd have to know why you want a bill submitted and supported. It goes, again, to knowing your legislator, to knowing that topic very well, and to get that submitted in time.
So I need you to tell me, what's a rule?
Well, each chamber has rules of rules of procedure and how they do things, and they're not set up by laws. It's kind of the rules. There's a number of discussions on ethics, for instance, on this session. Voters several years ago approved of an ethics commission, and I know one of the chambers, the Senate, said basically, we can do this ourselves. We don't need a law for some of these items. They can police themselves and do that through rules in their own chamber. And so there's a lot of truth to that. I have not looked at any of those rules. Again, it would almost be full-time job just to keep up on a lot of this stuff. So,
Right.
But it could eliminate a lot of time spent on bills that maybe they don't need to be there. There are different ideas. Right now, every bill that's submitted gets a committee hearing and gets a vote. The committee cannot kill the bill as it is. Some people have suggested that. However, others have argued against it, saying it would give the committees too much power. So there's pros and cons really to every side. Ultimately, it's can they decide which way to go? A voter could suggest an initiated measure and make it a law. There's all kinds of ways it could go about, but at this point, it doesn't look like the North Dakota Legislature is slowing down anytime soon for what they're going to be adding as far as bills. And so there are some interesting ones coming up, again, for those who are legislative junkies. As we get close to wrapping up here, the legislators are looking at different ideas on how they meet, when they meet, how long they meet. Right now it's 80 days, and they do that every year and a half. Every 2 years they meet for 80 days. There's some talk about stretching that out a little bit. So if you are a government junkie, you want to take a look at that one, because there looks like some very interesting propositions. Whether or not that makes less bills that will be introduced or not, it's really hard to tell. So, well, I think that is all the time we have today for our topic. So make sure that if you're interested, find House Bill 1479 and follow the process and become part of it. Testify in person or submit some written testimony, and let's do this together. Let's get North Dakotans familiar with the North Dakota Constitution.
Yeah, or contact your senator and say, hey, you should support this bill.
Absolutely. Let's follow this thing through fruition and see the process work. Thank you for joining us, everybody, and thank you, Samantha, for co-hosting today.
Thanks again.
All right. Till next time.